TikTok could well be banned in the next few weeks. Let's talk about what you need to do, the impact, and why this is happening. As things stand currently, TikTok will be forced to remove its app from US app stores or face penalties by January 19th, effectively banning TikTok for the 150 million users in the US. If you want to continue to access content from your favorite creators, now is the time to go follow and support them on other social media platforms, such as YouTube. And even those who don't use TikTok are likely to feel the impact of the ban. Earlier this year, TikTok collaborated with Oxford Economics to estimate TikTok's economic impact. Now, keep in mind, these are TikTok's own numbers as it fights to justify its existence. But it estimates its US operations directly contributed $8.5 billion in GDP, $2 billion in tax revenue, and about 59,000 jobs. But it's also a platform that small businesses use for marketing, growth, and sales. And it estimates the impact there is an additional $24.2 billion in GDP, $5 billion in tax revenue, and 224,000 jobs, all of which disappear if TikTok is banned. So why is this happening? In April, the Protecting Americans from Foreign Controlled Applications Act was passed, prohibiting the distribution or operation of foreign adversary-controlled applications, listing North Korea, China, Russia, and Iran as foreign adversaries of the United States. The bill passed with bipartisan support, including a number of representatives who voted for the bill despite being prolific users of TikTok, such as Jeff Jackson and Colin Allred. The bill was passed over growing concerns that adversarial countries could influence companies in their country to use the applications and data they collect to exert political influence. As The Atlantic reports, there's concerns in particular that the Chinese government could leverage its power over ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, to covertly manipulate content on TikTok to promote Chinese interests, arguing that ByteDance could be compelled to flood the feeds of American users with pro-China propaganda, sowing discord and influencing US politics, citing the app as a threat to national security. Concerns that have been voiced for years, and to its credit, TikTok has taken steps to address some of those concerns. It turned over management and oversight of its data servers to Oracle, to ensure that users' data was being handled securely. It also turned over the app's source code and algorithms for audit by Oracle, to ensure there was nothing there that could be manipulated or used maliciously. And I realize that as a creator who uses TikTok and is part of the creator program, there's a conflict of interest here. Of course, I think the app is safe to use. Working in software, however, I do think some of the concerns are valid. Just a few months ago, the FTC put out a report that found social media and video streaming companies were still conducting vast surveillance of users with inadequate safeguards for children. And TikTok was one of the 9 services highlighted as a concern. But so was Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, Discord, Reddit, and WhatsApp. But more interesting is who is missing from these privacy concerns. ByteDance also owns the video editing software CapCut, which integrates seamlessly with TikTok. CapCut has over 300 million users and is estimated to control over 80% of the mobile video editing market share. It has gone from controlling just 4% of market revenue to over 40%. And despite this absolute dominance of both market revenue and users, there's been almost no discussion of CapCut or calls for ByteDance to sell. The other issue is that even if ByteDance does sell TikTok to a US interest, there is no guarantee that a US company controlling the data will do a better job and prevent a foreign malicious actor from using and manipulating users with that data to influence US politics. And we know this for a fact because it already happened. In 2013, a psychology professor named Alexander Kogan launched an app called This Is Your Digital Life. He used Amazon's crowdsourcing marketplace, Mechanical Turk, to entice users to download the app and take a personality test by paying them. But the app's real goal was to get users to connect the app to Facebook so that it could harvest the personal data of them and all of their friends. In 2014, Facebook changed its rules to close that loophole and limit the amount of data that could be harvested by such apps. In 2015, Facebook learned that Kogan had violated the platform's policies by passing the data he had gathered to political research firm Cambridge Analytica. Facebook removed the app from their platform and sought reassurances from all parties that the illegitimately obtained data was destroyed. That same year, a number of Republican candidates, including Ted Cruz, hired Cambridge Analytica, using their data analytics and research skills to aid them in their political campaigns. With Cruz's campaign reassuring those concerned that they had done their due diligence, and that all of the information is obtained legally and ethically with the permission of users when they sign up to Facebook. And in 2016, Cambridge Analytica then worked with Donald Trump's presidential campaign, doing much the same work. In 2018, The Guardian, Channel 4, and the New York Times all released exposés on Cambridge Analytica, revealing that Cambridge Analytica had lied. They had not deleted the Facebook data, but instead were using the data of 87 million Facebook users obtained without their permission to engage in political manipulation and deliver targeted propaganda to social media feeds. Not only that, but they were also aware that Kogan, the researcher who had harvested and provided them with the data, was being funded by Russian grants for his social media research. Undercover reporters for Channel 4 posed as potential clients interested in hiring Cambridge Analytica to influence the outcome of Sri Lankan elections. Using a hidden camera, they recorded Managing Director Alex Turnbull and CEO Alexander Nix boasting about the work they did for the Trump campaign. We did all the research, all the data, all the targeting. We ran all the digital campaign, the television campaign, and our data informed all the strategy. Turnbull described how the company could create proxy organizations to discreetly feed negative material about opposition candidates onto the internet and social media. Sometimes you can use proxy organizations that are already there. You feed them. They are civil society organizations, charities, or activist groups, and we use them. We feed them the material and they do the work. We just put information into the bloodstream to the internet and then we watch it grow. Give it a little push now and again, over time, to watch it take shape. And so this stuff infiltrates the online community and expands, but with no branding, so it's unattributable, untraceable. And part of that is because they were using a self-destructing email system that leaves no trace. We set our emails with a self-destruct timer. So you send them, and after they've been read, 2 hours later, they disappear. There's no evidence, there's no paper trail, there's nothing. Which is concerning by itself, but absolutely terrifying when put into the context of Nix also saying that they could potentially bribe or use honeypots to blackmail candidates. Equally effective can be go and speak to the incumbents and offer them a deal that is too good to be true. And make sure it's video recorded, you know? These sorts of tactics are very effective. Instantly having video evidence of corruption, putting it on the internet, these sorts of things. They will offer a large amount of money to the candidate to finance his campaign in exchange for land, for instance. We'll have the whole thing recorded on cameras. Or, Nick said, they could send some girls round to the candidate's house. We have lots of history of things. The reporter asked what kind of girls, and Mr. Nick said they could find some Ukrainian women. I'm just saying we could bring some Ukrainians in on holiday with us, you know? You know what I'm saying. They are very beautiful. I find that works very well. Nix was immediately suspended as CEO. The FTC launched an investigation, and Mark Zuckerberg was called to Congress to testify as to Facebook's role in the scandal. Zuckerberg also put out a full-page ad in multiple US and UK newspapers, apologizing for the data breach and promising to take steps to make sure it doesn't happen again. We have a responsibility to protect your information. If we can't, we don't deserve it. The next year, the FTC concluded its investigation with a $5 billion fine. And despite promising to overhaul its data handling policies, Facebook was fined 265 million euros for a data leak in 2021, 1.2 billion euros for violating data protection rules in 2023, another 91 million euro fine this year for lax security policies exposing users' passwords, and settled a $1.4 billion privacy lawsuit with the state of Texas. If the concern really was about the privacy of users' data, then why is a company that so consistently and egregiously failed to uphold that privacy still allowed to operate? Instead, it appears that Meta simply sees these fines as the cost of doing business. So given that these companies are doing such an alarming job at protecting our privacy, it feels like shutting one of them down should be a good thing. Well, Pew recently published a report profiling America's news influencers, of which I apparently fit the criteria as mine was one of the accounts they sampled. It's important information, since 1/5 of all Americans and 1/3 of Americans under 30 say they regularly get their news from influencers on social media. And what Pew found is that almost 2/3 of news influencers are men, and are more likely to explicitly state they are right-leaning than left-leaning on all platforms except TikTok. TikTok's news influencers are more evenly split by gender, and it's the only platform where news influencers are more likely to publicly identify as left-leaning than right-leaning. Regardless of privacy concerns, whether they are valid or not, shutting down the only social media platform that doesn't drown out women's voices with a sea of conservative men is a huge loss to our political discourse, and to all the Americans who use social media to stay informed of current events. And despite all of this, and TikTok's 11th hour legal challenges, it looks increasingly likely that a ban will go ahead. Even in the face of other platforms' consistent failure to protect users' privacy, politicians seem convinced that TikTok is the larger threat. And in the words of Cambridge Analytica's former CEO, it doesn't have to be true, it just has to be believed.